These are the children of Islamic State group's foreign fighters. During the final battle against IS in Syria, scores of kids were killed or injured. Others were lost or missing. Many who survived are stuck in one of the most dangerous places on earth. Children the world doesn't know how to deal with. And while the group's ambitions of a caliphate has failed, its ideology lives on.
I love you, Daddy. And I love you, Dadu.
I'm Poonam Taneja, and I'm an investigative reporter. This little boy you can see in the video, his name is Salman. The woman you can hear in the background is his Canadian mother. She's coaxing him to say a few words for his Dadu and Dadi, his grandparents. They're thousands of miles away in the UK. And this message and a few more photos is all they had of Salman. Shortly after this video, the messages and the photos stopped. Salman had gone missing. He was in Syria during the last days of the war against IS. His grandfather Ash wanted me to try and find out what had happened to him. So I called a few NGOs, made a few contacts, but nobody had really seen Salman or they knew what had happened to him. A few years later, in 2022, I met Ash again. I was preparing to go to Syria to find out what had happened to the thousands of children who had been taken to live under Islamic State group's so-called caliphate, or those who were born there. Ash knew this, and he asked me to find out what had happened to Salman during this visit. So on a park bench in East London, I made Ash a promise that in my trip to Syria, I would try and find out what had happened to Salman.
But as I arrived in this region, ripped apart by years of war, neighbouring Turkey was firing missiles into the areas of Syria I needed to get into. Payback, it claimed, for a bombing in Istanbul, striking hundreds of targets, killing at least 30 civilians and destroying vital infrastructure, and making it harder for me to get into the Kurdish-controlled camps that hold thousands of women and children who once lived under IS, a regime that raped, murdered and tortured. They were brought here after IS was defeated. Amongst them are orphans and unaccompanied children. If Salman is still alive, then this is the place I need to start looking.
We showed his photo to women in the camp. Some were British, one was Canadian. They all told us that they recognized him, this group of women, and that he had been living in a guest house with his mother in a place called Marajda, next to Baghouz.
These squalid camps are no place for children to live, yet thousands do. Most are under 12. All have survived unimaginable horrors. A few have visible injuries, missing limbs, wounds from shrapnel. Others have wounds you can't see. They're from all over the world: Britain, Trinidad, Australia, China, Tunisia, Sudan. All stuck in sprawling tent cities deep in the Syrian desert, waiting for their countries to take them back. Some countries like the US, Germany, Norway and Sweden brought back mothers and children after IS was defeated. Other countries have only taken small numbers of orphans or children who'd already been separated from their parents.
Salman was born under the IS Caliphate. He was born to Ash's son Haroon, a British foreign fighter, and his Canadian wife, another IS recruit. Ash's son Haroon was killed shortly after Salman was born by sniper fire, fighting for IS. Ash and his family asked Salman's mother, Aisha, to leave Syria, but she didn't.
At the time, Aisha and other IS families were on the run from village to village as coalition forces advanced. They ended up in a village called Baghouz, where IS made its final stand. The village was bombarded for weeks. There was little food, and scores of children were killed by airstrikes or died of illness and starvation. As the battle was lost, their families surrendered to Kurdish forces. The men were taken to prisons, the women and children to camps. But even as IS lost the war, some of its members remained loyal to the group.
Shortly after Ash lost contact with Salman and his Canadian mother Aisha, Ash received a mysterious message saying that Aisha had been killed, but there was no mention of Salman. Years have passed and Ash refuses to move on, even though his family already have. What I think Ash really needs, more than anything, is to just finally know what happened to Salman.
I've looked in all the places where Salman might be, if he's alive. I've spent time in both camps, Al Raj and Al Hol, asking about him, showing his pictures to staff there. I've tried to find out who contacted Ash's family from Syria, those mysterious calls and messages saying that Aisha had been killed. With so little to go on, I've come up short. But there's one story I've heard again and again.
To find Salman, we decided that we needed to go to where he was last seen, a place called Murajda near Baghouz. The big problem is, though, that travelling there is just too dangerous. There have been loads of IS attacks there. And so we needed the SDF's protection, a military escort. So one day, very early on in the morning, we travelled to Baghouz with a convoy of the SDF, 7 armoured vehicles, and a number of soldiers. And we made the 8-hour trip through the desert to a place called Murajda, where baby Salman was last seen.
So this is Baghouz, or whatever is left of it. This is where Islamic State group made its last stand. And these trenches and dig-outs and craters, this is where the families of suspected IS militants took refuge. They hid there, they protected themselves from the bombings. Now it's clear that the people who were protecting themselves, some of them were fighting. We've seen remnants of their weapons, but also clear is the baby's clothes we've seen. We've seen the baby shoes and the blanket. And this is also where Salman was last seen. He was last seen here with his Canadian mother. Not this area specifically, but the surrounding region.
In the nearby village of Murajda, the place where Salman was last known to be living with his Canadian mother, tribal leaders and Kurdish intelligence officers helped us find the 2 guest houses where IS families lived. Both had been bombed to the ground. We were told there were no survivors. If Salman was living in either of these buildings when they were bombed, then there's no chance he could have survived. When Ash asked me to search for Salman, I knew it was near impossible to find him, but I understood why Ash couldn't move on, even after others did, why he needed to know.
When I returned to London, I met Ash, Salman's grandfather, and I walked him through all the steps of the investigation and told him what I found. He thanked me and said that he was now at peace. But while Salman's story is over, there are thousands of children from across the world who remain in camps, detention centres and prisons in northeast Syria.